Hi everybody, it's Bruce from Nature Calls. Today we're going to continue the introduction into backpacking for those people that are looking to figure out how to get into backpacking, and we're going over the 10 essentials, and this 10 essential item is the first aid kit. Now when we talk about first aid kits, this is all oriented towards backpacking and the day hikers. Day hikers, a lot of times I see them without any kind of first aid kit, but what I recommend is if they take just the basic backpacker or first aid kit to make sure they're going to be okay, or other people in their group are going to be okay. This is not a first aid kit for, say, someone who's doing like bushcraft or something like that, where there's a lot more sharp tool use and axes and all that. This is just for backpacking, and it's also not a survivalist or a prepper type of backpacking kit. This is oriented towards keeping the weight down. And I'll show through, as we go through, that a lot of those instances where using something like an Israeli bandage or something like that, this isn't statistically something that's necessary. We live in the United States, or, you know, if you're watching this video, hopefully you're within a place where you can get some reasonable help within a day. And that leads into the next point of all this, is that knowledge is one of the first things that you should concentrate on, is how to administer first aid and how to recognize what the symptoms are of, say, an illness. The other part of a first aid kit is that a lot of times it'll work in conjunction with some of the other 10 essentials, and I'll point those out as we go along. But the first thing that we want to do is make sure that you're very knowledgeable, so I'll put some links. And there's also lots of training that you can go to, and there's lots of videos on different first aid. But the key to all this is understanding what the actual statistical illnesses and injuries there are. And so there have been studies, all the United States, the search and rescue teams, they keep logs of what they're dealing with. And there's surveys and polls done of all the Pacific Crest Trail hikers and the Appalachian Trail hikers, the thru hikers, and to find out what is the predominant injury or illness that they encounter. So you don't have to bring supplies for a broken femur or heart surgery on this. This is something that we have to be reasonable about it and bring what we can, keep the weight at a reasonable weight so we can go backpacking and enjoy it. There's also, you have to look at whether or not you're going as an individual hiker, or if you're in a group, or if you're like with me, where I am leading groups. I'm probably the most experienced usually in the group. I might have some very inexperienced backpackers with me, or young people. So I have to kind of take account into that. So now first aid kits can range on how you carry them. The ultralighters will do a Ziploc baggie, which is perfectly fine. We'll fill one of those at the end of that. There's also the kits that you can get from places like REI. This one here I got for doing a 10K run, which is great. If you ever do those 5K, 10K type things, they give you really neat things in little first aid packs. They'll give you, like, this is a little sunscreen, this is a little Blistex, and this is a little muscle gel, that also with some moleskin and some Band-Aids. But these little kits are really neat. They're somewhat lightweight still. They come in a red package, little first aid cross on it. So those are really cool. So pick those up. Then this is one, if I know I'm going in a place, and I usually do take something like this because I go in places where I encounter other unprepared hikers that have hurt themselves, and so I need to stop and take care of them. Now, going through what are the actual injuries and illnesses that we can expect, what are the highest percentages that we can expect out on the trail. The highest, after all the surveys, is blisters. Makes sense. The next one is diarrhea and gastrointestinal problems. The next would be skin irritations, something you get from poison oak or bug bites, ticks, those kind of things. The next would be joint pain, like you're just sore or you've got a hurt knee. And then the next one would be cuts and abrasions. Then there's, of course, probably a lot of individual ones, but the percentages go way down when it comes to actual things like broken bones and all that. So yes, there is knowledge that you can be gained, and there are things you can bring that can help with those, but that, as far as a first aid kit, you don't want to deal with that. Now, there are people out there that are tried and true ultralighters, and they base all of their first aid on their knowledge, and they also base that on other items in their 10 essentials or in their kit. One of the big ones that most people I know have is some type of duct tape. They have it wrapped around their trekking poles, or they have it in some other capacity. I put it on my trekking poles, and it deteriorates over time. So what I like to do is take duct tape and wrap it around like an old gift card. I like to have it so I can at least have 4 lengths of 8 inches, because what I use it for mainly is blisters, and so you want a good 4 inches on each side of your heel. So 4 pieces of 8 inches would probably do just fine. The other thing that no first aid people have is something like a bandana. Bandana, of course, can be used for compression of cuts. It can be used to put water on it and cool someone down from heat exhaustion. You can tie a tourniquet with it. You can make a sling with it. So bandanas, part of that 10 essentials. So that's what they're talking about when they say, I don't bring a first aid kit. They're also expecting that they'll be within help within a day or two. So bandana, duct tape, and usually you have some type of needle for doing things like popping blisters or suturing or those kind of things. That's what the ultralight, I don't bring a first aid kit people do. I'm not that way. I like to bring a first aid kit. So let's start off with blisters. Now with blisters, let's assume that you've tried on the right shoes, you've had them fitted, you've gone to RAI, you've got everything, you know how to lace them, there's all kinds of techniques, but you still end up with a blister, or someone in your group ends up with a blister. So here's the treatments and tools that I think you should use. And I already talked about the duct tape. Duct tape is a great thing to have for, of course, repairing equipment, but you can also, if you have blisters on the feet, you can wrap those areas with duct tape and leave it on there, really. So it's a good protectant. Of course, when you get done with your trip, you take it off, clean it, and do all the things you're supposed to do. But duct tape around a gift card is the way I recommend. The other item that I take is leukotape, and I do take this much leukotape, and this is a tape that like kinesiologists or trainers use. It's a very sticky tape that will stick to the skin really well. Now, one of the people that I look to when it comes to my first aid kit is Andrew Skirka, and he is probably one of the better known super long distance backpackers. And he recommends having a little of the benzoin tincture, and he doesn't take a whole bottle of it. He takes he puts it into a smaller 1 ounce fluid bottle. You can get these on Amazon, but you put that on the skin, and then this helps all the other sticky stuff stick to your skin better. Plus it cleans it. Now the other thing that I love is something called moleskin, and moleskin is another highly sticky, it's like a felt padded fabric that you can cut and put around your blister area, and hopefully you'll get to that blister area when it's just becoming what's called a hot spot, where you just start feeling it, but have some moleskin. And of course, Band-Aids, a good set of Band-Aids will also help with the blisters. Now, another great item to have in your first aid kit, and I use clothespin needles and a lighter. I always have a lighter in my first aid kit, and you pop your blister and you drain all the fluid out, and then you cover it with something to keep it from getting any dirt in it to get infected. There's a couple different schools of thought out there, whether or not you put antibiotic ointment on it or if you let it dry. I personally am in the camp where I like to let it dry and keep all the moisture out to keep any infection from happening. But what Andrew Skirka does is he has this stuff called Blisto-Ban, and it's basically a really cool Band-Aid that has antibiotic ointment in it, and you put it over. It's a padded treatment that you put over the blister. So I usually have a couple of those in there just in case. But I'm personally from the camp of letting it be dry. You don't take the skin off. You leave that so it can protect the area. But I figure I'll be back, within range of civilization within a day or 2 or 3, at most 5 days. So that's the way I go. The next biggest issue is diarrhea or gastrointestinal problems. And those occur from just basically not being sanitary, not filtering your water. So I know everybody's like, I filter my water, I use this filter, I use hand sanitizer. So you do all those things, you still end up with diarrhea, or someone in your group ends up with diarrhea. So how do we deal with that? Now, hand sanitizer, I like to keep one of these somewhere in my pack, not necessarily in my first aid kit, but definitely wash your hands with this. Be real clean, filter your water. If you're trading water bottles or trading spoons, it might help, but to not do that or to make sure the other person's being just as clean. But this is, other than blisters, which is something like 54%, this is like 40% of the illnesses of first aid need on all the hikes. So how do we deal with that? So what I bring along at a very, very minimum, and I put it all in these little plastic baggies you can get at the pretty much any pharmacy. So what do I have for stomach? The very minimum, I have Imodium. And Imodium is an anti-diarrheal. So I'll bring about, I think I've got 6 in here. Of course, go with directions, but that's all you need. You don't need to bring the whole bottle or the whole box. Bring like a nice little quantity. I take 6 because I usually am preparing for not just me, but my group. Also bring about 4 Tums to help with the stomach. And I bring about 4 little Pepto-Bismols. So those are what I do for the diarrhea. Plus, of course, hydration, and you can add electrolytes. That's another part of the what you can bring for your water system. But electrolytes and Imodium and water. So that's how we deal with diarrhea. Now, the next one is skin irritation. So we're talking about ticks, poison oak, anything that causes a rash or some type of skin irritation. Now with ticks, of course, you have to be able to find the ticks, and so that's where I recommend a mirror. I really highly recommend a mirror, especially if you're a solo backpacker. There's really no way to see if you've got something like in your eye or something on your face without a mirror. Plus, a mirror is awesome for checking for ticks in places that you can't see. So definitely bring a mirror. Of course, you can signal with it. But that and a tick key, there's a couple different styles, but this is the one that's probably the most widely known. It's called a tick key, and there's videos on how to use it. So that'll help us keep us from getting Lyme disease. Now, if you do get itchy skin, you can use calamine lotion. Of course, you don't bring it in a big bottle like this. You transfer it into a little 1-ounce bottle. A little bit of calamine lotion to help with itch. And as far as a medication for the itching hives or any type of allergy, I bring about 4 Benadryls. Actually, I think I've got 6 Benadryls in here. So some Benadryl in a little plastic bag. Now, the next biggest is joint pain. And so joint pain can come in a lot of different ways, from rolling your ankle to knee pain. And of course, you don't want to bring all those things, but I bring like the Leukotape that I talked about earlier and the duct tape. Now, the Leukotape I've used quite a bit of this, not on me, but on other hikers. Last couple of years, I've come across day hikers that don't bring any first aid, and they do a serious twist of their ankle, and they're miles from the trailhead, and I've taped up a couple hikers with this Leukotape. So Leukotape, I also bring, this looks big, but it's super light, and it's self-adhesive ACE bandages, so it sticks to itself. Great stuff, and I bring this much because I usually have my dog with me, and this is one of the only ways to bandage up a dog, is using this stuff. So self-adhesive athletic tape. And this is medical super glue. Now, super glue is great for if you've got a cut and you want to glue your skin back together. So super glue is the same stuff as this, so this is just the medical grade of it. So a little bit of super glue. So that's what I bring for like materials. Now, as far as just dealing with pain and fever and those types of things, the minimum is ibuprofen. So bring a little packet of ibuprofen, and I write on here also what the dosages are. I bring some Tylenol, which is great for just headaches and pain, and if it's a young person, Tylenol is the way to go. And then a few Advil, so that helps with cramps and with pain. So those are all good things. Bare minimum, bring the ibuprofen. So now the next one that we're going to deal with is cuts and abrasions. That really comes down to having a few assorted bandages, having a bandana to cover things up, having a couple squares of clean gauze, having some triple antibiotic ointment. They do have these wound seal instant bleeding stoppers. They're kind of like a dust that you put on that stops bleeding right away. The first aid people don't like this stuff because it is super hard to clean out. But they do stop bleeding. It's really kind of cool. So the bleeding there. Now, a few of the extra things that I like to bring along, and I've already mentioned a mirror, and you can get smaller mirrors, but I like this size of mirror. Having a really nice pair of scissors. These here are actually paramedic scissors. They can cut through a penny. They're used for cutting off casts, but they're lightweight, and they are super, super sharp, and they do a great job. You can definitely get smaller scissors. They're great to have. Toenail clippers are, I think, a must-have. I always clip my toenails before I go backpacking because you jam your toenails every once in a while. You can lose a toenail, but I'm also looking at other things that I need to cut with a fine cutting tool like this, or if other people in my group have not taken the time to cut their toenails, have one of those. I'm having a really nice pair of tweezers, and this is the Uncle Bill's tweezer, and they are just one of the best tweezers, and they're just very precision, and they really get splinters out like you wouldn't believe. So the Uncle Bill's tweezer, actually did a video on this one, but I'll leave all the links to all this stuff down below. I already mentioned the clothespin or a sewing needle with some thread. I have that in my repair kit, but a needle is great. And then one of the other things that I bring, and I've had to use, and in here, this first aid kit is something to get people out of shock, or someone who's diabetic. Now, when I was treating this one girl last year, she was in shock, and I gave her, this was Starburst that I had in there. I gave her some Starburst, I calmed her down, elevated her leg, and the Starburst alone caused her to calm down, and it was just amazing what a little piece of candy will do. Plus, if you have someone that needs sugar, a quick little candy is great. This is something I think I got at a hotel that goes in there. I carry these little butterscotch hard candies to have in. They're just great to have. And the other thing that this company called Pure Lift sent me, and I didn't really know how to do a video on it, but caffeine headaches and caffeine withdrawal, especially on like a 4-day trip, and someone in your group is a big caffeine person and you don't have any way to give them coffee or caffeine, you can do like Vivarin, but I thought this was really cool. This is called Lift, and it's a straw that has pure caffeine in it, and you just take it, you undo it, and you swirl it around in the bottle of water, and it gives them a great caffeine lift. I thought that was really cool. So it's super light. I mean, it's lighter than a pen. So I take this in my first aid kit now. So let's put together a minimum kit. So I got a baggie, and we're going to put some Band-Aids. Put just a little square of moleskin. Put in the bag of ibuprofen. Put in the Benadryl. Put in the Imodium. Put in the tip key. A needle. And tweezers. So that is a minimum first aid kit for an ultralighter right there. You'd have the duct tape somewhere else, and you just kind of hope and pray that you have your lighter somewhere else. But this would be like a minimum ultralight kit in a Ziploc. Let's measure how much that is. So it's 1.3 ounces for that. So that'd be a minimum. I would add all the rest to my kit. So there is, say, a Bruce minimum kit. Let's see how much that weighs. That's weighing right around 9.7 ounces for that. So that is what I would normally take. Might go up to maybe 12 ounces. But most of the time I'm bringing supplies for, everyone in my group will have a minimal kit, like the smaller kit, but I'll be taking a little bit more than this. And this is what I feel real comfortable with. I might take a little bit more moleskin. If my dog's with me, I'll take all of these, but I might just take one of those if it's just me. That is what I would take. Okay, well, that's just a quick rundown of first aid kit for the 10 essentials of backpacking. You can add, of course, your own personal medications to it. You can take, add and subtract, but I hope we went over what just the basics were for the actual statistical blisters, diarrhea, skin irritations, and bug bites, joint pain, and cuts and abrasions. Those are statistically what happens out on the trail that you should really be concerned about. Anything else other than that is a much higher level, and that's where knowing first aid and knowing what to do and how to improvise is going to be more helpful than actually carrying the materials themselves. All right, well, I hope that helps, and I'll see you out on the trail. Bye now.